Hi guys, it's Steffi from the Novelty Corner and welcome back to part 2 of my 3 loved reread tag videos. So this tag was originally created by Polyreader and I'll leave a link to her original video down below, as well as the first part of my tag, which was when I set my 3 reread TBR challenge for myself. I'm actually surprised I got through it as quick as I did because I think it's only been maybe 2 months since I put up my list of 3 books that I wanted to reread, but I have gotten through them and I'm so happy. I'm so happy. There is just something about rereading books, especially when you get to reread the books that you loved reading. So the basic premise of this tag, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it and don't have time to go and watch my first tag or Polyreader's video, but if you do, I highly recommend you do go check those out, is to pick 3 books that you reread sometime in the past that you remember loving, and to reread them and see what your thoughts are on them now. So for my part, I picked books that I haven't read in about 10 years or longer. One of the books I read when I was in year 7 or 8, so that is a good long time ago now. One of the books I read about year 9, and one of the books I read a couple of years later than that. So all of these I read in my teens. And it was quite fascinating to go back and read these books because I made some realizations. I still love them. I gave them all 5 stars, and whether that's nostalgia talking or whether it's just that I really did enjoy these books, I think it's a combination of both. But I know that I sat there and I just couldn't put these books down when I reread them, so it's a pretty good indicator. I will also leave links to my wrap-ups where I've reviewed these books so that I talk a little bit more about the synopsis in them. I'm not going to do that so much in this video because I just don't think there's really time. I just want to sort of sum up my experience with rereading the books. The first book that I reread was Northern Lights by Philip Pullman, which is the first book in the His Dark Materials series, and I read this probably in my late teens, and I think I said in the first video that the first time that I read this series, I actually binge read the entire series in a weekend. We were staying with a family friend down near the beach and I literally camped out on a chair and refused to move while I just ate up 3 books. I have also since finished rereading the His Dark Materials trilogy throughout the course of this process. In the wrap-up for the Amber Spyglass, I think I talked about how I've come to the realization that this series has actually informed part of my reading tastes as I've gotten older, and I'd forgotten that because I'm really fascinated by stories with angels. I'm fascinated by stories that unpack and poke at religion. And not because I'm the type of person to go around poking holes in religion, because I am Catholic and so religion has formed part of my life, but I really enjoy looking at religion as a cultural thing, and I like looking at the religious text, and I actually like unpacking them. So I don't mind when people go and poke holes in theories and beliefs. I don't find that offensive personally, and I know that some people do, and that's why I don't tend to go around talking about it a lot, but I actually really like unpacking that sort of thing and looking at where things stem from. And of course there is quite a heavy component of that in the His Dark Materials series. Not so much in the Northern Lights, because I remember reading it expecting that and there wasn't much of it in there. But in later books there definitely is. But I remembered how much I love the world building in this series, how good Philip Pullman is at just constructing these multiple universes that eventually roll into this whole series, and I just loved it. And I love Lara because she is impulsive and she's young and she's strong and she's a liar and she does what she does to survive, and I thought that was incredible. So I absolutely loved this series and the fact that it's reminded me of where some of my reading taste has come from. This will probably have to go up onto one of my all-time favorite series lists because I don't think that it can't not, now that I've reread it and I can remember exactly what it was that I loved about it. Then I reread Area 7 by Matthew Reilly, which is the second book in the Scarecrow series. This was a book that I picked up for my 100th read of the year. I just thought, I'm going to pick up something I know I'm going to absolutely adore and something that I'm desperate to reread. I read Area 7 when it was first released way back when, and I'd received it for Christmas and I stayed up all night reading it. And this is a memory that I have so strongly of this book, of the very first time that I read the book. For a long time, I've been under the impression that Ice Station was my favorite Matthew Reilly book because it was the first book that I read, and I absolutely do love it. I think it is a great, fun, ridiculous read, but I think Area 7 actually ticks a few more boxes of all the things that I absolutely adore in these ridiculous action adventure stories. You know, those are things like military. It's in the middle of the desert. It's a secret military installation. There's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of plot twists. There's a trip up into space, however briefly. And I'm just going, yep, I like that. Yep, I like that. Yep, I like that. Tick, 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 tick. And I loved it. I've said it many, many times before. Matthew Riley is one of my favorite authors. I love the ridiculous nature of it. I love that there is, you know, only minimal character development over the course of books, because the focus is on just keeping you engrossed in this crazy roller coaster ride of a story. And I love that. I love the escapism of it. So it was really great to go back and reread this. And then the final book on my rereads was The Lost World by Michael Crichton. Again, this was a book that I read when I picked it up probably when I was in year 7 or year 8. And at that point in time, I was at high school. We'd moved to Sydney for my first year of high school, which was a little bit traumatic, to be perfectly honest. And sometime between the year 5 and year 7, I'd stopped picking up books. I think I was just trying to deal with having to make new friends and fitting in and whatnot. And then at one point I just started exploring the high school library, and I found a copy of Jurassic Park and The Lost World. But it's The Lost World that has stuck with me the most over the years, and it's just one of those books that I love. It showed me that even though I may not be very maths or science inclined personally, I love hearing about it, and I love hearing people talk about it, and I love the story that Michael Crichton crafted around the whole topic of math and game theory and stuff that happens in this book. And it was just so delightful to read. And it was interesting because I just remember loving this book, and then I'd forgotten that, you know, a huge chunk of the first half of this book is quite slow, is quite focused on unpacking what's happened in the story and who the characters are and why they're doing what they're doing. So that part was quite slow, but at the same time it was also just fantastic to be back and to see what happened and, you know, what I'd forgotten about that part of the story, because the second half is quite action-packed once everything kicks off. And it was also really good to see that, you know, this book actually has a really strong female character in it, in Sarah Harding, and also the young girl in the story, Kelly, is also quite a strong female character. And the conversations that those two have about not letting anyone pull you down, not letting anyone take credit for your work, those were really important, and I'd forgotten that. So it was a real pleasure to go back and reread this, and I'm so glad that I did. Now I just want to go back and watch the film. So that's it. That is my conclusion to the 3 loved rereads tag, and I'm so glad that I did it. I'm now, you know, sitting here going, okay, which books am I going to read next? Because I think it's really important to go back and reread books, and I'm a big advocate for that. But of course, this year I'm really trying to get through everything that's been sitting on my shelf, because I don't want to have books piling up. Yes, let me know if you want to see this tag again, and I will definitely work on that. In the comments below, let me know if you reread books, and have you ever come across a book that you'd read ages ago and you've reread it and you've just remembered why you loved it so much, and what book was it? Likewise, if there's a book that you read that you remember loving and then you read it again and you realize that maybe it wasn't as good as you originally thought it was, that's also really important as well. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're having a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye guys.